Lad, written by Jamie Osborne. 2, Slalom, the short favourite, John White. 3, Mrs. Muck, Carl Llewellyn. 4 is Bluff Cove, Richard Dunwoody. 5, Combermere, Jimmy Frost. 6, Pregada, Richard Rowe. 7, Royal Athlete, Dean Gallagher. 8, Santella Bobkiss, Mark Perrott. 9 is The Pike, John Quinn. 10, Undaunted, Ben de Haan. 11, Young Bavar, Michael Bowlby. Here's the betting.
Favorite is Slalom 6-4, Pregada 4-1 second favorite. Santella Bobkiss 11-2, Mrs. Muck 8-1, Undaunted 12-1, Combermere 16, so is Young Bavard, Bluff Cove 25-1, 33-1 bar. Ontado's gone from 10s to 12, so there isn't a lot of interest there. But the one they're looking at is Pregada, the second favorite, which began in the betting at 6-1, is now 4-1. Slalom the favourite still, though, 11-8. Pregada 4-1. Santella Bobkiss 6-1. Mrs. Muck 10s. Undaunted 12-1. Combermere and Young Bavard 16-1. Bluff Cove 25s, 33-1 bar.
And I certainly expect him to put up a better performance than he did first time out. Takes a good tug. He's got a drop noseband on there just to keep his mouth shut and to give Jamie Osborne a little bit more help. 40-1 from 33, so obviously the Sherwood stable don't think he's back to his best yet. Perhaps.
Steve, wait, you've got one up. Wait. No.
12 flights this time.
Just get their heads off the tape. It's a bit slow. Can you get the heads back off the tape?
5-4 the favourite now. 5-4 Slalom.
Right.
4 Pregada. 11-2 Santella. Mrs. Muck is fourth in, and as they run down to the first flight, Combermere takes them along from Santella Bobkiss. The Pike on the outside goes up to jump its second now, safely over the first flight. Combermere from the pipe and Santella Bobkiss. Then Knight and Lad on the outside. On the inner is Bluff Cove, the winner 2 years ago. Then Young Bavard, then Slalom. Behind Slalom is Royal Athlete. Undaunted towards the inner, Mrs. Muck, and finally Pregada. Somewhere behind the remainder at the moment, Pregada, and the Pike going up to take it off Combermere, a little between these two in fact, the Pike and Combermere, as they swing right-handed. Combermere on the inside of the Pike and Knight and Lad the grey, and on the near side Bluff Cove. Just behind then Santella Bobkiss, Royal Athlete on the outer. Young Bavard's the back marker of the group as we see them at the moment, but Pregada is currently out of picture, and Combermere is the leader from the Pike. Knight and Lad and Bluff Cove, and Santella Bobkiss on the inside of Royal Athlete. And then comes Slalom and Mrs. Muck, and behind them Undaunted as they race towards the next flight. This is the third. Combermere from the Pike and Knight and Lad. Bluff Cove on the inner. Royal Athlete and Slalom just behind them. Pregada getting a little bit nearer, although currently out of picture. The Pike on the outside of Combermere as they come to the fourth. Knight and Lad the grey towards the right of the picture as we see them now, with on the far right Royal Athlete. Combermere and the Pike and Knight and Lad, little between those three. They're being followed by Royal Athlete and Slalom and Bluff Cove and Santella Bobkiss as they round this turn into the straight on the first circuit. Combermere on the far side, the Pike, and then Royal Athlete. Behind them comes Santella Bobkiss and Bluff Cove, and then Slalom and Mrs. Muck, and Undaunted over on the far rail. Towards the right of the picture is Royal Athlete over the fifth. Combermere and the Pike, and Knight and Lad a faller. Knight and Lad a faller, and interfered with Slalom there. Looking back to that flight, I see Knight and Lad, and he's up all right and continuing. His rider has yet to rise, and the Pike is the leader now from Combermere. Then comes Mrs. Muck and Santella Bobkiss. Behind them Bluff Cove, then Royal Athlete and Undaunted, and then Slalom, and Knight and Lad's rider Jamie Osborne is up on his feet all right. He's okay and walking away from the flight. And of course he rides Tonight's the Night in the next, the very much fancied runner in the big handicap, the SGB, so he'll be anxious to get passed by the doctor as soon as possible. So as they run down with another complete circuit, Combemere is back disputing it with the Pike. Santella Bobkiss is third and Mrs. Muck 4, and Royal Athlete going strongly in 5. Brigada's made ground on the outside. Then on the inner comes Bluff Cove. Behind Bluff Cove is Undaunted. Behind Undaunted, Young Bavard and Slalom, who was interfered by the fall of Knight and Lad. Combemere there, the leader from the Pike. Santella Bobkiss, Undaunted on the inside of Mrs. Muck, and on the outer Royal Athlete, and then Bluff Cove, and then Young Bavard, then Brigada, and then the favourite Slalom. So they run down into Swinley Bottom now, and as they do so and race towards the 8th, Combemere being pressed by Santella Bobkiss and the Pike on the outside. Then Undaunted and Mrs. Muck and Royal Athlete. Then comes Bluff Cove and Brigada and Young Bavard, and then Slalom, who's got an enormous amount to do at the moment. They've only got a mile left to run now in this Youngman's Long Walk hurdle. 4 flights left to jump. Racing towards the 4th last, Combemere, who's been up there from the outset on the inside of Santella Bobkiss. The Pike has lost ground. Mrs. Muck has moved into 3rd now, Undaunted chasing her. Just in behind them come Royal Athlete, and Slalom has a great deal to do and is not making a lot of progress at the moment. Racing to the next. Santella Bobkiss and Combemere, 4 from home, from Mrs. Muck, Royal Athlete, Undaunted. Slalom has been pulled up, and Young Bavard has been pulled up as well. Mrs. Muck now disputing it with Royal Athlete, and coming there strongly on the inside is Undaunted. 3 from home. Mrs. Muck with the advantage from Royal Athlete to the right, Undaunted to the left. Combemere back in 4th, Santella Bobkiss 5 and Brigada 6. Mrs. Muck has the advantage on her seasonal debut from Royal Athlete in 2nd and Undaunted 3rd. Mrs. Muck and Carl Llewellyn, who's on the 13 mark, looking as though he's got a great chance of getting off it now, as Mrs. Muck comes to the 2nd last with the advantage over Royal Athlete, who's under pressure. Undaunted is 3rd. This is the 2nd last in the Youngman's Long Walk hurdle. Mrs. Muck over on the far side lands 3 clear of Royal Athlete in 2nd, Undaunted 3rd, Brigada 4. Racing to the final flight now, Mrs. Muck from Royal Athlete. Royal Athlete, Dean Gallagher, coming to try and challenge Mrs. Muck, and at the last Mrs. Muck doesn't jump it too well, and Royal Athlete putting in a big challenge on the far side and beginning to get up, and Royal Athlete is going to win it. They race up towards the line. Royal Athlete has won it from Mrs. Muck. Royal Athlete the winner. Mrs. Muck is 2nd. Brigada runs on to be 3rd, ahead of Combemere 4, 5 Undaunted, and those in fact are the only finishers of the 11 who set out, and the winner, number 7, Royal Athlete, owned by Mr. Gary Johnson, trained by Mrs. Jenny Pittman, and ridden